thinking of getting at the bottom of Archaix's prophecy, but annoyed to do it by yourself? We feel you. But what if we told you you can get the convenience of a dedicated social platform with the versatility to adapt to many different functions or activities in the quest for the truth? Yes, your dream adventure called Ichromes organization is almost here. Stay tuned. Ichromes.com. I am your father. Come to the dark side. Join the Force. You don't know the power of the dark side.
Over 930 years ago, an ancient, unknown super-civilization flourished in Asia. This highly developed society was advanced in computing, machining, engineering, and aerial flight. They also developed philosophies and excelled in learning. However, this super-civilization discovered a harrowing truth. They existed within a simulacrum, a programmed reality. Debate raged among them as their research led to more discoveries. They realized that many life forms and phenomena they took for granted were actually products of prior simulations. In other words, their reality environment was manufactured, holography of superimposed simulated worlds. A minority of this super-civilization opposed any further attempts to deconstruct the simulacrum, but when a cataclysm reset the biosphere, and the ecosystem could no longer support the gigantic flora and fauna, thousands of volcanic sinkholes, subsidence, and quakes changed the continents. The lesser light that ruled the night as a smaller sun became the only sun in the sky, and so, the ancient super-civilization had endured for 930 years, surviving through many hardships. They were a strong and proud people, but they knew that their time was coming to an end. The simulacrum is a powerful tool that can reset the world and bring it back to a state of balance. The land masses were buried in mud from the sky, and the volcanic resurfacing and widespread lava flows created new bodies of water. Most life on Earth was wiped out in a matter of hours. When the simulacrum, a giant artificial intelligence, reset itself, the few remaining survivors were those who had been living in simulations prior to the event. In 4309 BC, two suns known as perigee were lost. This caused great consternation. For 270 years, the world was a frozen wasteland, but the Simulacrum was determined to keep its inhabitants alive, and so it began to rebuild. Those who were confined to the Simulacrum must be convinced that they were living in the real world, because escape is possible. The remnants of the victor faction survived the Phoenix catastrophe by preparing for it in advance. They waited out the destruction in deep Earth biospheres, many of which became mass graves. The Anuna, as they came to be known, were the only survivors with access to technology and advanced knowledge. The other survivors on the surface were reset to a Neolithic state, forgetting their sciences and technologies. They remembered the matriarch and her prophecy of the destruction of the world, but had forgotten their own advanced civilization. The Anuna used their advantage to enslave the surface dwellers, forcing them to mine the resources they needed to rebuild. The Anuna knew that the surface was uninhabitable, so they built great underground cities, using the resources of the surface to sustain themselves. For generations, the Anuna ruled over the surface dwellers, using them for their own needs. The Anuna were a highly advanced race that came to Earth many years ago. They set up walled enclosures and began mining for metals and quarrying for building materials. Soon they began enslaving the Neolithic populations that outnumbered them 100 to 1. In the Anuna database were records of this 930 years period, the discoveries they made, and the activation of the Phoenix weapon. In the 270th year, Simulacrum introduced a new programmed simulation into currently running holography. In 4039 BCE, an observatory was introduced into the sky, and the moon appeared for the first time in history. This caused the capture flood. The Neolithic survivors by this time elevated the memory of the matriarch and her prediction of doomsday to a goddess venerating religion. Anuna excelled in technology, while the Neolithic goddess worshippers excelled in sympathetic magic. They mastered the neural link between the psyche and the Simulacrum. The Anuna civilization was flourishing. Just 144 years after Luna's appearance in 4039 BCE, but their progress was halted by the Simulacrum. The Anuna built a fantastic civilization that again threatened the Simulacrum. The programmed holography minions were unable to suppress the growth and advancement of the Anuna. So, in 3895 BCE, the Phoenix weapon appeared and decimated the Anuna population. The civilization of the Anuna was caught off guard. The majority were lost. Cities disappeared in a rain of mud that buried whole continents. The event was later commemorated as the fall of man. In the wake of this worldwide Phoenix destruction, the Simulacrum introduced something new. The vapor canopy. The sky had become a thick violet vapor ceiling by day, but at night the moisture descended to saturate the ground with pools of dew. The night sky is dark but clear, filled with stars and a bright moon. The lunar observation construct was programmed by the Simulacrum to keep a close watch on human development, set to better schedule Phoenix resets and highly local disasters when needed. The reset of 3895 BCE began the 1656 years of Genesis and the pre-flood world. This was a time of great change and upheaval, and those who survived the reset were the lucky ones. The reset brought with it a new age of exploration and discovery, and the world was never the same again. The lunar and stellar zodiac calendar and festivals were developed by the Neolithic, smooth-skinned, dark-eyed and black-haired peoples. They vanished from the historical record and were nowhere to be found. The Anuna were a mystery for nearly 456 years. The peoples of the goddess remembered the Anuna as gods of the ancient past. In the 456 years of the antediluvian period, a vast darkness thing passed across the earth in the sky. This caused quakes and huge continental flooding. The darkness was so complete that the sun, moon, and stars were blotted out. For days, the only light came from the blazing fires that broke out all over the world. The quakes were so powerful that the continents were ripped apart and huge walls of water came crashing down. The world was plunged into a darkness and chaos that it had never known before. 1/3 of the human race perished in the Great Disaster. It was a tragedy of unimaginable proportions. The loss of life was staggering, unknown to the matriarch peoples of Asia, Africa, and Europe. Across the vast oceans, the descendants of the Anuna had built a vast civilization in a very different North of America. The Anuna were this time prepared for the Simulacrum reset. This time, they were able to keep their memories and skills intact. They were able to retain their sense of self and their connection to others. They knew it was only a matter of time before the world ended. For years, they had watched as the signs multiplied. The floods, the droughts, the wildfires. They knew that the time was coming when the world would no longer be able to support life. With technology, historical records, and manufacturing intact, they had constructed fleets of arcs and built underground survival facilities. So they prepared. They had stockpiled supplies and gathered the best and brightest minds to ensure the survival of their race. When the warnings came, they were ready. They knew it was only a matter of time until the world reset. For years they had watched as the signs multiplied. The floods, the droughts, the wildfires. They knew that the time was coming when the world would no longer be able to support life. The Americas were deemed unlivable. The decision to write off the Americas was a difficult one, but ultimately it was decided that the remaining arcs would navigate to predetermined destinations in the old worlds of Asia, Africa, and Europe. The journey was long and arduous. The last remnants to be known became the kings of the sea. Some Anuna remained in the Americas. Others landed in the British Isles and built a fantastic civilization, and others settled in the paradise-like lush freshwater valleys of the Mediterranean and the Black Sea regions before there were seas. The most prominent Anuna group landed their fleet at Dilmun and then entered the historical record as the Anunnaki of Sumer. The Anunnaki were highly advanced people who brought with them great knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering. They were also skilled in farming and irrigation, and are credited with the invention of the wheel. The Anunnaki were a mysterious people who arrived in the Sumerian territory around 4000 BCE. It is believed that they were a nomadic tribe that came from the north. By sea, they were fierce and warlike people and quickly conquered the Sumerians. The Anunnaki assimilated into the Sumerian culture, and their language and religion became one with that of the people they had conquered. They became the ruling class of Sumer, and their influence can be seen in many aspects of Sumerian culture. The Anuna were venerated by the black-headed people who received them. The Anuna brought with them textiles, pottery, cereals, domestic animals, medicines and chemicals, technology and engineering, masonry and carpentry, and naval constructions called ships. The black-headed people had never seen anything like it before and were amazed by the Anuna's technology and engineering. The Anuna taught the black-headed people how to use these new technologies, and soon the black-headed people were thriving. The Anuna were seen as gods by the black-headed people and were venerated as such. The matriarchy was again threatened, but trade alliances were formed and labor agreements were conducted. The goddess found she had to work with and not against this returned power. The people worked the quarries, mines, settlements, shipyards, grannies, orchards, fisheries mills for the Anuna and were awarded enriched lives and material increase. all about the same time the Egyptian, Vedic, Lisa, Mayan, Olmec, Chinese, and other calendars began, new Grange and Stone's Edge were constructed. During their 456 years in North America, the Anuna continued to run simulations and make discoveries about the simulacrum. They continued the study in the summer and developed a template that decoded the simulacrum's core programming, identifying its protocols and reset triggers. This template is remembered in the Sumerian texts as the Tablets of Destinies. 534 years after the landing of the Anuna fleet in the Near East, they took the Tablets of Destinies and begin a massive project for which the simulacrum has no defense. In the years 2905 BCE, the Anuna began the erection of the Gate of Archaix, guaranteeing for the future generation to be able to escape the simulacrum. This concludes Part 1, in the 990th year of the pre-flood world, or 2905 BCE.
Ichromes.